Pendulum has had a rough run as a mechanic. After the Arc 5 era, as well as the massive hit it took in Master Rule 4, it's been mostly ignored. But recently, it's been getting more support that may bring it back to the forefront. And what better way to do that than to release support for the main character, the main villain, the main guys of Arc 5. It's complicated. Just like this unnecessarily complicated guide to Supreme King Pendulum Magician. While we do still run many of the same cards, the support release has changed how Pendulum Magician is played so much, it might as well be a completely different deck. The core of the new Pendulum Magicians is Supreme King Gate Magician, a level 7 light pendulum monster with a scale of 1. If you have a Supreme King Gate in your Pendulum zone except itself, it can special summon itself from your hand by sending a Pendulum Dragon, Xyz Dragon, Synchro Dragon, or Fusion Dragon monster from your hand or extra deck to the graveyard. If special summoned, it can search for any card that mentions Supreme King Zark, except the spellcaster monster. While this unfortunately means that it can't search for Astrograph Sorcerer, it can still search many useful cards that we will get into later. For its Pendulum effects, it prevents your opponents from banishing Supreme King Zarks you control, but more importantly, it can destroy itself to place another Supreme King Gate monster from your hand or deck into your scale. What this means is that drawing a second copy of Supreme King Gate Magician is actually good, as we can use one for its Pendulum effect to search for another Supreme King Gate monster, enabling us to use the other's monster effect. Supreme King Gate Magician is the new heart of Pendulum Magician, and many of our plays will revolve around it. As for our other Supreme King monsters, we have the pair of Supreme King Dragons, Darkworm and Lightworm. Darkworm is a level 4 Dark Dragon with a scale of 5 that if normal or special summon can search for a Supreme King Gate monster. In addition, if it is in the graveyard and you control no monsters, it can special summon itself for free. This makes cards that can send it to the graveyard like Foolish Barrow or Dragon Shrine a consideration for us to run. For its Pendulum effect, if you control no monsters, it can place a Supreme King Gate monster from your deck into the Pendulum skill, but it also locks you to Pendulum summoning dark monsters for the rest of the turn, making it so that we rarely use this effect. Still, Darkworm is a great card that we're always happy to have access to. Unfortunately, it's not searchable by our Supreme King Gate Magician, at least not directly. Lightworm on the other hand is a level 4 Light Dragon tuner with a scale of 8. If normal or special summoned, it can add a Supreme King Gate or Supreme King Dragon Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, then it can immediately Synchro or Xyz summon a Supreme King Dragon monster. In addition, if a Pendulum monster is destroyed by battle, it can add itself from your extra deck to your hand. If you have a way to summon Lightworm on your opponent's turn, such as using its Pendulum effect, which allows you to special summon from the scale if another monster is special summoned, provided you control Supreme King Zark, Lightworm can serve as a decent interruption by synchro summoning Supreme King Dragon Clearwing to destroy your opponent's monsters. For this build, however, it's mainly run as a searchable high skill. Lastly, we have to run at least one copy of a Supreme King Gate, with the options of 0 or Infinity. They both have similar effects that rarely come up, so we'll just play the one that doesn't prevent us from Pendulum summoning. For our spell and trap lineup, the Lightwing Dragon is the first of our new spells. This is a quick play spell which during the main phase allows us to add a Supreme King Gate or Supreme King Dragon from our deck to our hand, or special summon it if we control Supreme King Zark. Extra consistency is always nice, and notably as it can search Darkworm, it allows Supreme King Gate Magician to indirectly search Darkworm by searching the Lightwing Dragon. Pendulum Evolution is our other new spell, a continuous spell that allows us to shuffle a Pendulum monster from our hand into our deck to search for a Pendulum monster with 2500 attack and a different name. This includes Supreme King Gate Magician as well as Astrograph Sorcerer. During your main phase, if you special summon a Pendulum monster from your face down extra deck this turn, it also allows you to perform an additional Pendulum summon. Last and certainly least, it can give a Supreme King Zark you control the ability to attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. Pendulum Evolution is often win more and not necessary to run, but being able to search Astrograph Sorcerer and the ability to extend with an additional Pendulum summon are powerful effects, making it a consideration. Finally, we have our new trap, Soul of the Supreme Celestial King. This normal trap allows you to tribute a spellcaster Pendulum monster with 2500 attack to fusion Supreme King Zark by banishing fusion materials listed on it from your hand, deck, extra deck, field, and or graveyard. Its effects are negated if you don't have at least one Pendulum Dragon, Xyz Dragon, Synchro Dragon, or Fusion Dragon banish, but something tells me that won't be a problem. There's really not much else to say about this card. It's the easiest way to properly summon Supreme King Zark, making it useful for Zark focused builds. However, the setup requirement means that outside of those builds, it's not really worth the effort. We also have access to the existing pool of Pendulum Magicians. As there are just too many of them, I'll only briefly go over the ones worth running. For our high skills, Double Iris Magician is run for its effect to search for a pendulum graph if it is destroyed. This gives us two great options in Star Pendulum Graph for more searching, or Time Pendulum Graph for an interruption. Harmonizing Magician is a tuner that if Pendulum summoned, can special summon a Pendulum Magician from our deck with its effects negated, giving us easy XCs and synchro access. For our low skills, we have Purple Poison Magician and Oath Dragon Magician. Purple Poison Magician is able to target and destroy a card if destroyed, making it useful spot removal, while Oath Dragon Magician has effects to help you retrieve cards from the extra deck or graveyard, making them useful to have. And finally, we run Wisdom Eye Magician and Purple Skullcrow Joker for additional consistency. The last card we have to mention is Astrograph Sorcerer himself. This level 7 Dark Spellcaster Pendulum monster is essential to our deck's most powerful lines, and it's all because of one effect. If a card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, it can special summon itself from your hand, then choose a monster to the graveyard, extra deck or banish that was destroyed this turn, and add one monster of the same name from your deck to your hand. This effect is not once per turn, meaning that as long as we can keep getting it back to our hand and triggering it, it's an extender that keeps generating card advantage, and we certainly aren't short of ways to do that. In fact, this effect is so good that I'm not even going to go over the rest of the effects. We won't be using them anyway. Moving into the extra deck, we of course have the Pendulum staples of Heavy Metal Force Electromite, Beyond the Pendulum, and the new Exceed the Pendulum, while we have some unique tools at our disposal. Supreme King Servant Dragon Starving Venom is a fusion monster that can be contact fused with two Dark Pendulum monsters, with the effect to target and copy the name and effects of a monster on field or in the graveyard, as well as giving our board piercing for the rest of the turn. While this doesn't let us cheat hard once per turns, it does let us use soft ones per turns like the one on Electromite again, which means that we will usually use Starving Venom for its best Electromite impression. We do run another fusion monster, but the way we summon it is a little unique. All Ice Absolute Dragon is a rank 7 that can negate attacks, but we're here for its other effect. If this XC summon card is sent to the graveyard, we can special summon an All Ice monster from the extra deck, which means that by linking it off, it allows us to cheat out All Ice Vortex Dragon, a fusion monster that would normally require an All Ice monster and a Pendulum monster to fusion summon. When special summoned, it can target an opponent's face-up attack position monster and return it to the hand. If a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated, it can shuffle a face-up Pendulum monster from your extra deck into your deck to negate the activation and destroy it. All Dice Vortex Dragon gives us an easily accessible Omni Negate, which we will use for most of our end boards. What we won't use as often is All Ice Rebellion Xyz Dragon, a rank 7 that requires 2 Pendulum monsters to summon. Although it has some effects that may occasionally be useful, its main use is as a target to dump for our Supreme King Gate Magician's effect, as well as being an easy to summon extra deck Pendulum monster to trigger Pendulum Evolution's extra Pendulum summon. The game plan for Pendulum Magician is pretty straightforward. Before our Pendulum summon, we first want to link summon Electromite. Using its effects, we'll send Astrograph Sorcerer to the extra deck and trigger its effect. We'll then use them to link summon Beyond the Pendulum to complete our skills, and finally, we perform our Pendulum summon. After our Pendulum summon, we'll try to XC summon All Ice Absolute Dragon, usually with Astrograph Sorcerer and Supreme King Gate Magician, then link it off to special summon All Ice Vortex Dragon. Additional bodies should be used to make the standard link interruptions of IP Masquerena or Appaloosa. However, we also have the option to make rank 4s as well as level 8 and 10 synchros, depending on what we opened. Test all different hands to see what you can end on, but generally, we want to end on some combination of All Ice Vortex Dragon, IP Masquerena or Appaloosa, and Xyz or Synchro, as well as Time Pendulum Graph. This is the main combo of the deck that the rest of our combos are built around, requiring Supreme King Gate Magician and a way into another Supreme King Gate, often another Supreme King Gate Magician. We begin by scaling our other gate before activating our Supreme King Gate Magician, sending a dragon from our extra deck to the graveyard to special summon itself. It then searches the Lightwing Dragon, which will activate the search for our Dark Worm. We normal summon the Dark Worm, searching for the second copy of Supreme King Gate Magician. Now, we'll link up for Electromite, activating its effect to send Astrograph Sorcerer from our deck to the extra deck. We scale the Supreme King Gate Magician and activate Electromite to destroy it, and add Astrograph Sorcerer from our extra deck to our hand, triggering Electromite as well as the Astrograph Sorcerer. The Astrograph Sorcerer will special summon itself, and as we destroy Supreme King Gate Magician this turn, it can add the third copy of it from our deck to our hand, and we will also draw a card from Electromite. We then link up for Beyond the Pendulum, paying 1200 life points to search for Double Iris Magician, which we will scale, proceeding to Pendulum summon the Astrograph, Darkworm, and Supreme King Gate Magician. Now we contact fuse for Supreme King Servant Dragon Starving Venom. using its effects to copy the effects of Electromite in our grave. We then use its effect to destroy the Double Iris Magician and Astrograph Sorcerer to our hand again. This triggers the Double Iris Magician and Astrograph Sorcerer, with Astrograph Sorcerer special summoning itself and this time adding a Double Iris Magician from our deck to our hand, while Double Iris adds us Time Pendulum Graph. We overlay the Astrograph Sorcerer and Supreme King Gate Magician for Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, linking it off for Exceed the Pendulum. This triggers Exceed the Pendulum's effect and Absolute Dragon's effect, adding a Double Iris Magician from our extra deck to our hand and special summoning an Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. Afterwards, we scale Double Iris Magician, allowing us to activate Exceed the Pendulum's other effect to special summon Astrograph Sorcerer from our grave, which will link up with Starving Venom for an IP Masquerena. Lastly, we set a Time Pendulum Graph and end our turn. During our opponent's main phase, we can use Exceed the Pendulum to special summon a copy of Supreme King Gate Magician from our graveyard, which will activate its search. When needed, we can link it off with IP Masquerena for an SP Little Knight, giving us additional interruption. If we don't have a way to enable our Supreme King Gate Magician, we'll look to enable it later in our combo. We begin by scaling Supreme King Gate Magician, activating its effect to destroy itself and scale a gate from our deck. We'll then scale our high scale and proceed to Pendulum Summon Supreme King Gate Magician from our extra deck, and any Pendulum monster from our hand. This triggers our Supreme King Gate Magician, searching for the Lightwing Dragon. We activated the search for a Dark Worm, which will immediately normal summon to search for a copy of Supreme King Gate Magician. Afterwards, we'll link summon Electromite, and like before, we'll send Astrograph Sorcerer from our deck to our extra deck, then activate Electromite to destroy our high scale to add Astrograph Sorcerer to our hand, triggering Electromite and Astrograph Sorcerer, special summoning itself to search for another copy of the high scale we destroyed, as well as drawing a card. We'll scale the high scale before proceeding to activate the Supreme King Gate Magician to special summon itself. Now, we contact use our Starving Venom using its effect to copy Electromite, and activating its effect to destroy our gate, adding Astrograph back to our hand and triggering it, this time searching for the third copy of Supreme King Gate Magician. We then overlay for Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, using it to link summon Exceed the Pendulum, and once again we will trigger Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon and Exceed the Pendulum, adding our gate from the extra deck to our hand and special summoning Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. Finally, we activate Exceed the Pendulum to special summon Astrograph from our graveyard, which we will link off with for an IP Masquerena. And just like the previous combo, during our opponent's main phase, we can activate Exceed the Pendulum to special summon Supreme King Gate Magician from the graveyard, then link it off with IP Masquerena. Here's a list for the standard version of the deck. As usual, change it depending on the meta. It's nice to see Konami begin to support pendulums again. The new cards released are a step in the right direction, helping fix problems inherent in the mechanic while also simplifying them just a little. Although they'll probably never get past the stigma of being walls of text that are too complicated for players, it'll be interesting to see where pendulums go next. Maybe the TCG, after Electromite finally finishes serving his sentence.